Hello, and welcome to Leviathan News. Today is July 10th, and we're back. Welcome, everybody. So we got some big news to talk about. Over the weekend, Circle froze the USDC that was stolen by the multi-chain hacker. So there were 3 transactions that blacklisted, I believe, about $54 million worth of USDC. So Tether also made some moves as well and blacklisted $2.7 million worth of USDC. So it looks like it actually was a hack and wasn't just, not a hack, but a malicious event that led to multi-chain being drained.
Yeah, it's the good side of the centralized stablecoins, right? Like they have this kill function, and it's the event of malicious activity actually what you'd like to see, right? Or am I going too far on that?
Sure. I guess it just like shows the stupidity or inexperience of the hacker. Like if they didn't swap everything to ETH in the same transaction, there must be something going on there.
Yeah, I mean that's where I said like I think it was like last week when we were talking about the hack that happened, and I forget the exact context, but someone was making the point that like the hacker was like, "Hey, I didn't know how to deploy a smart contract." Like sometimes hackers are kind of dumb, right? Like they just don't think like about their getaway strategy. They don't think about like how they're actually going to like launder the funds or get off of exchanges, which is why I feel like you see oftentimes these hackers find an exploit millions of dollars, and then kind of immediately just panic and be like, I didn't actually like know what I was doing.
You know what the like a bad hacker would do? Like it's like just steal the money, swap it into ETH, and then burn the ETH forever. There's like levels of hackers, right? Like sometimes they can be like lawful good. Maybe this one is like just neutral in all respects.
Yeah, we don't know. Go ahead.
Why didn't he actually? Why do you think that he actually didn't just like swap it to ETH? Like why?
Well,
just because he doesn't know how to.
Because he's not North Koreans, probably. If they had been from Best Korea, then they probably would have swapped it immediately and put it in the Tornado Cash like they normally do. But they weren't, and they were able to freeze it. So good for them. Hopefully they can. I don't know the actual like mechanics of recovering that money or how long it's going to be. I mean, I think that the issuers can freeze the money based on a law enforcement request, and then it would have to go through the courts to get it back to the relevant parties. That could take a long time, though.
Yeah, I actually asked like sometime a while back what happens in that case. It was like millions of dollars, and it's just sitting there for months or years. Like some like what happens if like it never gets through the courts if it actually is North Korea, right? Like at some point you got to admit, like if nothing else, you could like put it in treasury bills and earn pretty good interest on it. It's like in your interests to hold on to it.
That's actually what I was thinking, because there must be like both Circle and Tether must have, I don't know, Circle must have at least $1 billion worth of USDC, which is lost, right? And Tether probably has even more, that it's never coming back, and it's just going to sit on their books forever, earning whatever the short-term interest rate is.
Yeah, and but like the real dollars they're supposed to have back in it, or whatever, like the dollar worth assets back in it are still there, right? So
yeah, of course, yeah.
Issue against the assets, like can they burn the original USDC and like issue new USDC against the collateral they already have?
Sure, but I think there's a lot of people who just like lose their private keys or just like get Tether stuck somewhere. I mean, there must be a ton of stable coins just stuck that are never coming out of the system, which is a little strange.
Not the worst problem to have.
Yeah, I know. So the SEC came back and told Coinbase, or at least is alleging that Coinbase knew it was violating federal securities law before the regulator filed a lawsuit against it. And the SEC's response came in reaction to a Coinbase filing, which claimed that the SEC does not have jurisdiction to sue them. So the SEC had sued Coinbase a month ago, accusing it of operating as an unregistered securities exchange, broker, clearinghouse simultaneously by listing 13 different cryptocurrencies that were unregistered securities. And the new filing argues that Coinbase was aware that its conduct could be violating federal securities laws, yet it continued operations to grow business. I think this is one of those things where like they probably had discussions with their attorneys about like, you know, can we make the argument for or against, and the SEC's taking like the very, I don't know, not positive stance of saying like, because you had these legal discussions, you're obviously guilty.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, of course, I'm sure that's how it worked behind the scenes in both cases. I'm sure similarly, like on the SEC side, they know that they're taking the most extreme stance in one direction. Coinbase is taking the most extreme stance in the other direction, and they're just going to throw it into the courts and see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's like a little bit too far for the Coinbase to say, like, of course, what they're saying. Like, I hope they get away with it though.
Yeah.
Right.
So CLO for Coinbase came on around the same day and essentially came out and was talking about their response to the SEC. Essentially, they said that if there's no enforceable rights against the issuer, so like ETH, right? Like, who are the enforceable rights against? Is it the Ethereum Foundation or is it the actual like validator nodes? It's unclear, right? So because there's no enforceable rights against the issuer, it doesn't really fall under that prong of the Howey test. And so they're essentially going with this what is it called? The oh man, I've heard. Okay, I'm blanking on this one. But they filed this motion to dismiss, saying that the SEC has no regulatory authority applicable because Congress has not given it to them. And so yeah, ongoing drama.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, I know that Coinbase asserts that absolutely none of the assets it's listed are securities, but I like realistically, like after it all shakes out, like you have to imagine that a few are going to get listed as securities, right? Like the court's probably going to, or do you think that like it's just going to go through and the court's going to say like, I just think that's unlikely. I think like at least one or two are going to pop out as being like clearly securities per the like original Securities Act of 1933 or whatever.
I don't know. I'm very despondent to this chat because, you know, I look to see what other countries are doing and there's like a clear pathway, right? Either just do it, just push the button and make them all securities, make them register in a specific way, or just don't. And this back and forth just costs like billions of dollars in legal fees that just make everybody slower. The whole industry operates in a worse measure, and it just sucks for everybody. So the fact that we have to talk about this for the next like at least another 4 years is just maddening at this point. I understand that things have to work through the courts and that's how the whole system works, but I see it just as a failure of our institutions and failure of Congress. You know, elect better representatives, people. That's all I can say. That actually
doesn't work. Doesn't work. We keep voting different people in and keep getting worse and worse results.
I think it's the nature of how these things work. You know, it's not really about it's not a crypto issue. You know what I mean? It's not a specific issue that's related to our specific industry. It's just it's how the world works and how all that stuff that's about how the world works, how it relates to our situation. And such a young industry, so many different, actors have different perspectives and wishes on how to control this new and emerging market. And it's going to take years to decide. And honestly, I don't know. I don't think Coinbase is really going to, I think that Garrett is right. Maybe some of these coin tokens will be registered as securities and then they will be out and Coinbase will have to pay some kind of fine. But I don't see it as something that, what can actually happen? Like Coinbase will not be allowed to act again?
Well, that's the goal. I mean, it's political at this point, which makes it even worse, right? Like, let's just move on. I don't want to talk about this anymore because like we hammer upon it like literally every single day, and it's just a lot of like couch legal. Let's talk about DeFi because it's funner, and I think that's what people actually tune in for. So the real drama that's been taking place has been between Lido and Rocket Pool, who have been clashing, if you want to call it that, over the past few weeks. So Dmitry Guzikov, who's Lido's community staking league, tweeted out that that Rocket Pool has an externally owned account, an EOA, so essentially like a singular owned private key that allows the Rocket Pool PDAO to modify parameters of its smart contracts. And this Lido community lead came out and criticized this as not being permissionless. So an EOA is just like a wallet that's like controlled. Like I have an EOA. This is what I have at home. Like this is what Garrett has. This is what everybody has. And it's not really the best setup for security, especially when if you lose that private key or it gets disclosed somehow, it's a huge risk to the protocol, especially when there's like billions of dollars locked up. So I mean, there's other drama, right? So Darren Langley, who's the Rocket Pool's general manager, responded saying that the EOA account has been well known and will be addressed in the upcoming Saturn upgrade. Langley mentioned that the PDAO is in charge of setting protocol parameters, and an EOA was initially chosen for swift responses to potential security issues, with plans to replace it with a community solution. I mean, that's usually the response that's given for EOAs. I mean, a lot of communities still have them. I mean, it's something that like progressive decentralization usually starts with like having either like a multi-sig or EOAs that control specific parameters within a protocol, and then like over time you try to give up that authority. And but it's a hard sell, right? Because you can't just turn things over without a bunch of checks and balances to the DAO, right? Because you could look at things like Beanstalk, where they had fully on-chain governance, and an attacker was able to essentially like steal tens of millions of dollars just by acquiring enough of the governance token. So, you know, this whole spat's going on because Lido's market share has been just pushing higher and higher. Right now, they control about 36% of the total staked ETH right now, and they've been getting called out. But the thing about Lido is that there's not just like one pool like staker, right? They have like 29 stakers who are distributed across their system. So I'd say that the claims are warranted but unwarranted at the same time.
Well, it's funny because it's not like Lido is an exemplar for decentralization. But you know, that being said, great. Let's get into this spat. Let's have more protocols, forcing other protocols to become more and more decentralized until we actually get to this kind of promised land where all these protocols are actually sufficiently decentralized that they'll be resilient and truly responsive.
I just don't think it, like, if you're a competitor, I just think you should build better products, right? Like, these discussions about like Lido's market share are inane, because what you should be doing is just building better products that people want to use to take market share away. And if you can create something that is different or will draw validators or stakers away, that's kind of how you win at the end of the game. These little spats are just, I don't know, I see them as like, it feels weak coming from both sides, right?
Right, but then they decentralize and then they don't get attacked on it anymore, right?
Well, I mean, Lido's thing is always inherent in how they run their node. Like, they have a set Lido has a pre-selected set of publicly known validators who enter into legal contracts with the Lido DAO, right? And so that's just one security model, right? Rocket Pool has their own security model. So I think that there's a trade-off. People really just look at the trade-off between security and returns and the liquidity of the asset. So you kind of, maybe that's the LSD trilemma, right? If you want to call it that. Good.
Let's formulate the LSD trilemma.
It's mostly about, I think it's exactly what Sam is talking about. Like, you either trade off decentralization, or like you're more decentralized and less yield, or you have more yield that's more centralized, and it's about the people and their ETH to decide. And like if you build better products and the public is pleased with them, people are. It doesn't really matter what people say. What actually matters is where they put their ETH in. And
Yeah.
can't argue with Lido's success so far, but I think that this market is going to change. Whether it's going to be with changes on Rocket Pool, whether it's going to be by Frax ETH and stuff like that. Like this competition is really just in its first years.
Yeah, it's early, and there's a lot of competitors as well too. I'm looking at the LSD page on DeFi Llama, and I see 22 different ETH LSDs. So yeah, there's competition out there. It's just mainly trying to figure out like how do you take TVL away from Lido, and Lido has a great product, and so they have a really good BD team as well too. So.
Also, they have a Lindy effect, because now it's much easier for someone to decide that he puts his ETH with Lido simply because it's big, not because it's for sure better or for sure safer, not at all. But it's much easier to go with the big guys and not some of the newer and smaller actors.
That right there is the reason that we build all these things to be decentralized, and they keep getting centralized over time. It's because of the product choices of degens like us.
Exactly. Like Aave DAO, who voted recently to convert 1,600 ETH to equal amounts of RapSteth and RETH. DAOs are starting to move their treasuries into these LSDs to earn a couple of percent.
Naturally, but won't I think that if anyone can introduce new LSDs that can really gain a lot of traction quickly, it's exactly the blue chip protocols. Like, I don't know, a protocol like Aave or a protocol like Curve and stuff like that. They have a strong enough reputation that if they deliver a new LSD all of a sudden, it will be much easier for people within the community to say, okay, I'm going to try that because like it has the Curve or the Aave logo on it.
Yeah, Garrett, give us some alpha about Curve's upcoming LSD.
I have not heard anything about it, but I think Curve is pretty content just to let other LSD fi traffic flow through its servers. Like there's fairly major size pools on Curve for many of the biggest LSDs, including a ton of like Frax ETH pools. And it does great volume for Curve. So I think Curve's pretty happy.
Yeah. So
plus you can stake LSDs to mint Curve USD, which is approaching 100 million. So
I think that also maybe with Curve, I think that at least in my perspective, they're much more patient than the others, and they want to really see how stuff works. So I won't be surprised that just like they did with CRV-USD, because for example, as a basic user, up until like a year before it happened, or maybe even less, I had no idea that CRV-USD is coming. But it's like they've studied the stablecoin market and decided all kinds of stuff, and then they said, okay, and now we know what we want to cook and deliver. And I won't be that surprised if they at some point do it with an ETH LSD of some kind as well, even if it takes like years from now.
Yeah. So in other news, there is a ongoing class action lawsuit against Faye and Tribe. This was a drama-filled stablecoin that was launched back in 2021. So anyone who purchased Faye and Tribe, there is an ongoing lawsuit against the issuers of that token, and the way that the people who bought these tokens were informed was they were airdropped an NFT with information about this ongoing class action lawsuit. I think it's the first.
Never heard of that system again, because usually when you just airdrop an NFT, you think it's a spam one, and usually it's on the hide segment on OpenSea, and you don't even look at it, But
what's funny about that is if you've spent any time in this industry, I got to spend like a very little peek behind the curtain. Like that's the intent of all the class action lawsuits, is they want to pay out as little as possible, right? So they want to figure out whatever unique mechanism they can use to to not have to pay out. So informing people by NFT where they won't get the notice, that's a pretty good way to do it, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they have like the opposite argument as well, that even if you didn't register anywhere or something like that, you were delivered an NFT, so you have a chance to know the
exactly.
date.
So yeah, they just need to credibly claim that like well, this is a good way of informing people. So
It's very
and
strange.
fortunately, this one got a little bit too much notice, so people might hear about it from us.
Yeah.
Either way, this whole Fey tribe situation, like I don't see when it's gonna end, and what a huge mess, which has also been going on. Like, when was it? This was over a year ago.
Over a year ago, yeah. Yeah, it was nasty, and like it wasn't just like the holders as well too. I mean, like other protocols are affected. I know it was big. It's a big issue in the Frax community. So in other news, we have Arbitrum, who has voted to lock 700 million ARB from their treasury into a vesting contract following the approval of AIP1, and the funds will be incrementally released to the Arbitrum Foundation over a 4-year period. Apparently, people didn't like how close to a billion tokens were just unlocked right at launch. And so this is kind of a retroactive vesting period that was imposed on Arbitrum to ensure that they just don't dump the tokens on the community.
Kind of seems nice. No? What do you guys think?
I don't know. That whole Arbitrum situation was really weird. It seems like they dropped the ball. They got some bad advice on how to launch the DAO. I mean, remember they had like the whole like give back all the tokens, take back all the money from the market maker thing in the initial launch. It's just a mess. So this is probably just cleaning it up, adding some vesting periods, to make everybody happy.
Actually, I'm kind of optimistic about the Arbitrum decentralization process. And of course, maybe I'm biased about it because I kind of like Arbitrum, not financial advice, of course. Yet, I do think, it's very hard, I think, to decentralize an organization which is already as powerful and strong,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's the exact right word to say organization about the Arbitrum, but it's not like decentralizing Leviathan News in a way, because it's so much bigger and so much money on the table that I do think that it's going to have it's like growing issues. But honestly, I think that they've responded well, because I agree it was a very lame start. Yet at least they hear the community. The community is starting to affect, and I'm pretty optimistic about it. Will also be interesting to see, by the way, what stuff like what's Camelot are now going to ask with that proposal. How will the DAO respond, and how will these processes from the DAO will start taking place, and it will really allow, I think, many people in the community to express their thoughts on how Arbitrum should act with the different protocols. And I think it's going to be I don't know. I'm very interested in it.
So we'll keep up to date on that one. So Garrett, what's going on with Arkham, right? So they announced the launch of an on-chain intelligence exchange, which sounds a little strange, but apparently it allows people to buy and sell information between any like wallet or address via smart contract. What's going on here?
It's doxing as a service, right? So it's scheduled to go live on Tuesday, and they're billing it as a decentralized intel to earn marketplace. So users can basically post and receive bounties for any particular on-chain activity. So basically, my understanding of this is the way that they maintain quality is that bounty hunters will actually stake a sum, and if their submission saying who this address is gets rejected, then they get slashed. So it's going to weed out some of the bad actors, and the theory is that this is going to bring transparency, bring some wallet intel, and a lot of the information becomes public. But I think the real question is if this proves it's going to work, you can imagine a ton of centralized exchanges are going to be looking at this and trying to say not only is there a business here, but there's information that they're going to want for KYC or certain kinds of purposes. So we'll see what happens. I did want to bring up a pretty funny tweet I saw in response to this. Hold on a second. It'll take me a second to get my screen up here. But basically, DGen Spartan, who's very funny, wrote, "I'm wondering if I can submit disinformation and use this to my advantage." And they proposed. Hold on, I'm working on it. I don't have.
So he wanted to. So he
other
wanted
monitor
to
with me.
he wanted to essentially input false information about himself, buy it from himself. There we go.
Yeah, here we go. Place bounty on unknown address. Submit fake address from a Smurf. Accept the information and pay the bounty out to yourself. So you probably lose a little bit in gas fees there. The information gets accepted as your address, and then it gets shared to everyone as true after 90 days. So you could basically mistag your address and use this as a way of like giving yourself some more privacy. So I don't know exactly how they're going to figure this out, how they're going to make this work, but pretty funny stuff.
What's it going to be built on, this Arkham? Like, is it on ETH mainnet? Where is it actually going to be built?
Let me see if they said that. I don't remember. I think it's by smart contract. So maybe it's any chain.
Yeah, I mean, there's no information yet, so I'm sure we'll see it as time comes on, though. It's kind of weird, like the whole doxing as a service thing, right?
I mean, you can imagine a lot of here it is, Lawrence Function Zero. He's just imagined circling Coinbase people sitting there and looking at the inflow outflow of assets attached to docs profiles, and kind of interested in seeing what's going to happen. How much money could you make for this?
Yeah, information is an industry with a whole lot of money. They will want it either way, whether with Arkham or with the next one or whatever. Like our information is worth quite a lot, and we're just starting with these things, I think.
See, this is like why the whole Tornado Cash thing is just like such a mess, right? Because Tornado Cash provides a very good service in separating the identity from your funds. And when you have I don't know, let's call them actors, third-party actors like Arkham, who are out here trying to get you doxxed as a sorry, my dog's throwing up over here in the corner. You have like parties like Arkham who are trying to like dox you. It's just a little strange, right? Like we need better tools to be able to like shield the like in and outs of what your transactions are, so people don't really know who's using this, right? Like we should have tools to make these services obsolete.
Yeah, I mean the state of privacy in Ethereum is bad. If you're just a degen watching this trying to learn more, just assume every transaction on chain, no matter how anonymous you think it is tied to you and being surveyed by hundreds of government agencies simultaneously. So pay your taxes and like assume that there's no such thing as privacy until you get some of the good tools.
Yeah, I mean, like the only way to have like had privacy is if you like mined ETH as on the proof of work chain, right? And you have a I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much, but if you're buying ETH through exchanges, you should just assume that you're already doxxed.
Yeah, like at least for the people who really know how to research this kind of stuff, like no way that they don't know. Exactly.
But hopefully we get some better tools. I'm sure. I know a lot of people are working on privacy stuff, so we're going to get something that is able to eclipse.
We should also maybe try to reach out to some of the interesting privacy protocols and have some.
Well, look, I know everybody's building stuff, but nothing's really like reached anything at scale. So that's the main issue, right? Like how many privacy protocols have more than $100 million on them? I don't think it's very.
I'm not sure even that. This also sounds like quite a lot for me. I'm not sure that even there are even some with half of it or a quarter of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and if you're using like smaller tokens too, like if you're using Railgun and I'm the only person that sent Leviathan tokens to it, then it's pretty obvious like who that person is that's using Leviathan tokens from Railgun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. I can't even like. Okay. I can't even search for Tornado Cash TVL on DeFi Llama. They geo-block me. That's nice of them.
Oof.
But I think Tornado Cash had several billion at the top, right? They had a lot of money. There was a lot of ETH in that contract, and it's unfortunate that we don't have those tools. But hopefully we get them back, because we need ways to break the chain, like break the chain of custody. Okay, so what else do we have? BitDAO is launching a $200 million ecosystem fund. Man, they've got so much ETH in their treasury. They got a $2 billion treasury, and they just raised another $100 million from strategic venture partners. So Mantle Network, formerly known as BitDAO, is going to launch this big ecosystem fund. So they have one of the largest treasuries in crypto, like $500 million in ETH and $300 million in stable coins. So
What?
yeah, crazy stuff. But let's see. Is this breaking news, Garrett?
Seems like it, huh?
Are we going to do breaking news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so Conic Finance ETH Omnipools live on conicfinance.com. Is this a big deal, Garrett?
I'd say it's a big deal. So obviously, like anyone who's been following deep in the Curve ecosystem has seen how like the Curve USD Omnipool has become the primary source of liquidity. It looks like they're now sort of tipping their way into the LSD wars. So the initial Conic Omnipool is going to be a combination of the Curve RETH, Steph, and CB ETH CB ETH pools. Which between the three of those, at the moment, it's yielding 20%. You have to imagine that's going to come down just a little bit as kind of more TVL gets in there. But anyone could just dump raw ETH in and earn pretty good yields. I'm a little surprised that they was not more push for the Frax ETH pools. Like you'd think that would be kind of a gimme. But if you look at a lot of the other Conic Omni pools, like the Curve USD one picked up Frax Curve USD and ditched TUSD. Mm-hmm. So surprising that hasn't happened, but at the moment it's 20% APY on your ETH. Like you have to imagine that's gonna get a lot of attention. Already 40 ETH deposited in the past 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I need to do a deep dive into Conic at some point, because it seems like it's going to be quite a huge part of the Curve ecosystem in the future.
And thanks to Crypto Worm in the chats for breaking it.
Nice.
For sure.
Thank you.
Garrett, by the way, how do you explain actually, if you have any thoughts on it, the huge amount of traction that from what I saw, most of the CRV USD minted is actually going deposited on Conic, on that Omnipool.
Mm-hmm. So I just think of it this way: you mint the Curve USD right now. Interest rates are very, very low, so your borrowing rate's like 2%, but at the peak, it was like 10%, right? So you mint Curve USD, it's a game of musical chairs. Like all that Curve USD that's being minted, you got to start paying back more and more and more of it. So you got to earn higher and higher yields to make sure that you are able to actually be getting a profit off it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense for you to be holding it. Mm. So every Curve USD in existence has got to be repaid. It's earning money to the Curve DAO. Conic, meanwhile, they have kind of fairly recently launched. They have been prepping for this moment, and they say, give us your Curve USD. We will manage which of the pools are going to be doing the best on it. And they're sweetening it with their own CNC emissions to try and get a little extra boost there. So at the moment, they're able to outperform any of the other destinations for pure Curve USD. So yield talks.
Wow.
Do you think this is a better alternative versus, a better alternative versus the aggregators like Yearn's ETH product or the Origin ETH, where they're essentially aggregating all of the different LSDs into one token?
Yeah, so it's definitely comparable to Yearn vaults. And I don't want to necessarily say better solution. I think as a category, the question surrounding this concept of single-sided liquidity staking is it partially de-risks you, but then it also has historically been a lot of trouble, because if you're not really actively managing where it's going, there's just the risk of depeg, right? Mm-hmm. And it becomes if I just take my ETH and I stake it in like a pool, like I look at Frax ETH and I say, okay, that's pretty safe. Maybe it's not earning the best yields, but like I know those two tokens are safe. Like, I made 100% risk of loss if Frax ETH depegs. But because I picked like a conservative one, it doesn't depeg. With the Omni pool, like the risk is like, how do you get good yield and also like spread it into so many sources if something depegs? Like Conic has been very on top of it. Their DAO is actually voting and moving liquidity. Like they pretty quickly booted TUSD because of the kind of recent concerns about it. But if you're not actively moving it, like in TUSD does depeg, then a lot of LPs get wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did they do this vote for ETH? So this vote probably was done a little while ago, right?
Yeah, I have to admit I don't follow the governance forums as closely as I should, but there's a few great newsletters that do check it. So I basically a lot of the Omni pools get picked by CNC owners and stakers.
Right.
So the CNC owners and stakers are doing a fantastic job at the moment of kind of keeping the community, like staying on top of things.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Nice. Let's see what else we got. Oh yeah. So there is a newly proposed ERC20 standard. So ERC 7281 sovereign bridge tokens. This was put out by Arjun a couple of days ago. And essentially it talks about building a standard so that any token issuer can determine which bridges are used. And so after the multi-chain hack, they want to develop this standard so that if you're a token issuer, right, if there's an issue with one of the bridges, they can shut down that bridge if they want, right, and preserve the assets. So it's interesting how it works. Definitely worth the read. And yeah, so this just takes token ownership, right, and it shifts it from the bridges to the token issuers, letting them determine which bridges they support. And if there is like a bridge vulnerability, then the issuers can immediately just delist a bridge without undergoing a lengthy migration process. So this is more just about building security around like the actual people who are issuing the assets versus just like letting your token go and then letting it be out in the wild and kind of swept up into this whole multi-chain stuff. It is interesting to say that like these ERC20 standards are not a given. So anybody can propose an ERC20 standard or an ERC standard, not 20 standard, ERC standard, but it has to get consensus in the wider community to actually get picked up. So, it's good that Arjun's working on stuff, but it has to get, like you'd have to see Aave or Maker or Frax or Lido or anybody really like agree to come on to this altogether for it to have any long-term effects.
Yeah, the life cycle of these things plays out over years, right? Like it's been years since the ERC20 standard came into existence. It went from like nothing to now it's like people are like it can't be displaced. So you should expect to see the same with all the ones in the 7,000 to 8,000 number range. In like 3 or 4 to 5 years, it's going to be like.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot some like just ongoing like legal stuff. So Gemini filed lawsuit against DCG and Barry Silbert. DCG came out and labeled the Gemini lawsuit as a publicity stunt. Obviously, there was this like tweet that the Winklevi twins put out last week, essentially like giving Barry a deadline, and now it's going to be moving to court. So, okay. I like
tuned all week long. All week long, it's going to be lots more Jailcast.
I know. We just
always.
We want to be
in the industry.
Take me back to DeFi summer, please.
Stay patient, man.
Oh, God. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow. And keep on shooting some ink. Squids. Wait, what does squids do? They like waggle.
Wrapping your tentacles around the entire machine and destroying it.
That's nice. Think on that while you drink your coffee. Okay. We'll be right back with Vertex, but thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.